Last September, I bought an Amazon returns pallet for £250.
Just what the hell is that?
Since I uploaded that video, it has since got over 340,000 views, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. It's my highest performing video, which is absolutely mental considering it was something that I considered doing for quite a long time, but it was just one day I sat down and thought, I'm gonna buy one of these. Bought it and thought, just what have I done? It came and I thought,
what have I done?
I went through everything that I received on the pallet, the first impressions, if I could see anything immediately wrong with the product. I also included on that video how much the items were worth when they were bought new. That came over to just over £1,500 and I was optimistic. I won't lie, I was very optimistic, but I think it's about time, nearly 4 months later, that we do a bit of an update and find out whether I actually made any money whatsoever on this pallet. If you haven't checked out that video, I will leave it linked in the description below. It's worth going and checking that one out first so that you can see kind of what I got, how it arrived, how I organized the items, etc. But what I will say is that it did not stay in my tiny living room or in my tiny house. It went to my parents and sat in my old bedroom and the garage whilst we went through it and tried to work out what on earth we were going to do with everything. I did get a lot of comments from people expressing how they felt about the pallet. Which is absolutely fine. Obviously not everyone is up for buying something that you just don't know what you're gonna get. It's always gonna be a surprise. It's always gonna be a gamble. It's always gonna be a risk. But I was feeling lucky that day. Without further ado, let's just crack on and go through everything. I have got a spreadsheet to my left over here where I've itemized everything and then I've put in how much it was new, how much we found it online for on Amazon, what we ended up doing with it, whether we ended up keeping any items, whether we had to bin them, whether we sold them, and also things that we just haven't managed to get rid of yet. So this isn't going to be like a total turnaround. Just being straight up, not everything has sold yet. I say yet, we're almost on the bridge of just giving up, but we have shifted quite a lot of it. So let's go through everything. I'm doing it in the same order that we did in the original video. If you're following along, or if you have seen that video, then it will be going in the same order that we found the items in the pallet. So starting off with the children's car seat, from what I remember, I don't think there was anything particularly wrong with this, apart from there was some kind of bubbling and some like fraying on the material at the front. That retailed for $59.99. However, I didn't feel comfortable with listing that for anyone to buy or donating it or anything like that, just because you never actually know what reason that got returned. And if for whatever reason somebody bought that and it turned out not to be safe, then I don't know, I just couldn't do it. We ended up taking that to the tip. There wasn't much of a question to it. We've got rid of that straight away. So that brings us to a grand total of £0 made back. Next we had the towel set. So these ones, they weren't like the best quality towels, but they weren't the worst either. There was quite a lot in there, and actually we ended up donating half of them and then keeping half of them. So we donated some to the cat and dog shelter because they can always use like rags, towels, etc. to help keep the animals warm. But then my fiance also likes to hand wash our cars, so we kept some of them so that he could use them as rags to clean our cars with. He does also have his own car channel if you want to go and check that out. I'll pop a link below. If you are interested in car content, then go and check his channel out. Next we had a mattress topper. So that we ended up keeping because it was like pretty much brand new in the packet. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it, and we didn't have a mattress topper, and I thought, do you know what, let's just keep this and pop it on the bed. If we're not going to make any money from this pallet, then at least we get to keep a few things, you know. So we ended up keeping that one. Next we had 2 pillows. These were Silent Night ones. I believe the mattress topper was also Silent Night, but the pillows were definitely Silent Night. So the mattress topper and the pillows were Silent Night. We ended up keeping the pillows, though I've got to admit I haven't actually put them on the bed yet. I'm just kind of waiting until we need to rotate the pillows, but our pillows are absolutely fine right now, so they are just away in storage, ready to come out when they need to. We had a Silent Night single duvet, which I believe was absolutely fine. There was nothing wrong with it. We still have that. Actually, we haven't been able to get rid of it. I don't know whether people, I mean, to be fair, I don't think we've made that much effort to get rid of things like duvets, etc., because I'm just not sure that people are that interested in buying them, but you never know. But we did, however, sell a Silent Night double duvet, and that was actually to a friend of ours, and we sold that for £10. Just to go over the other things, so the towel set was originally worth £25.99. Obviously we kept them, so made nothing. The mattress topper was £28 originally, and we kept that. And the pillows were £16.99. The single duvet was £19, and the double duvet was £20.94. Next we had a shower chair. So I recognised one of these because I used to work as a carer, and it's basically just a chair to go in the shower. It speaks for itself really. Unfortunately there were missing poles and part of it was broken, so we couldn't really do anything with this, so we ended up having to throw that away unfortunately. But that was originally £59.95, but like I say, we had to get rid of it because I just wasn't sure that it was going to be safe for anyone to use, so I just didn't feel comfortable with selling it, so we ended up getting rid of it. Next we have another duvet, which was another Silent Night, but this one was a king size one. This originally retailed for £16.99, and we haven't sold that yet. The duvets just aren't selling for some reason, apart from the one to our friend. And you're probably thinking, Jess, this is a really bad start. And you're right, it is a really bad start, because so far we've only sold one item and it's been to our friend for £10. Great start, Jess. So moving on, we are now up to our first proper sale. So this one was the shower tent. So this one originally retailed for £91.65, and it's basically a double shower tent. We did put this up in my parents' garden just to check that all the bits were there. There were a couple of bits missing, but we managed to replace those, and we sold that on eBay for £25. Boosts our profit up a little bit. That was a nice little sale. We did take this to a car boot sale and nobody was really interested. We even took photos of it assembled so that we could show people what it looked like, but nobody was interested. So yeah, but we ended up selling it on eBay for £25, which is great. We had some wallpaper, which was like a paneling effect. Unfortunately, when we looked at this properly, it was all ripped and faded, and it just wasn't great, and we ended up throwing that one in the bin. That originally retailed for £5.99, so not much of a loss. I don't think we would have made very much from that anyway, but we did end up disposing of that. A toilet seat. So the toilet seat originally retailed for £9.99, and shock horror, we haven't been able to sell that either. So that is still waiting to be sold. I can't imagine that people would spend too much on what they probably will assume is a secondhand toilet seat, because, I mean, we obviously haven't used it, but it has been returned. So I'm assuming it's unused. I'm hoping it's unused. There's no, it looks like it has been unused. So yeah, that is still not selling. The coasters still haven't sold. These were originally £10.42 new. Again, haven't sold them. Next we move on to the mugs that we got. So we have a variety of aromantic and polyamorous flag mugs, retailed between £13 and £14.99. Surprisingly, nobody wanted those. We've took them to the car boot sale, no interest whatsoever. And even on eBay, they're just not budging. So we still have a bunch of those waiting to go. I promise it does get better. I promise it gets better. You're probably thinking, I know the outcome of this because she hasn't sold anything. I have, I promise. Just wait. So the Call of Duty mug, we ended up keeping that purely because my fiance wanted it. I don't think he plays Call of Duty. I don't really know why he wanted it. It's at the back of the cupboard now, not being used, but we kept it. But that only retailed at £1 anyway, so not too bothered about selling that one. Next, so now we actually have some progress. So the planks to play, it was like a children's game, almost a little bit like Jenga, but all the boxes were sealed. We did actually end up opening one of the boxes so that we could take the pieces out and display them so that people knew what they looked like, measure them, etc. We took them to the car boot sale. Unfortunately, they didn't get any interest there. However, we did manage to sell 5 of the 6 of those boxes on eBay. We sold 2 of them for £3.25 and then 3 of them for £4.30, and I actually sold one on Facebook Marketplace for £5. By the way, it's worth noting that while I'm telling you how much something has sold for on eBay, that is deducting the seller's fees, because they still had seller's fees at that point. So if there's some odd numbers like the £3.25, that's because the seller fees come off. So this is the amount of money that we came out with after the seller's fees. So yeah, we made some money off those ones. I also had some garage shelves. I was a little unsure about this because when we looked at it and unpacked it, it looked like they were the type of shelves that once they were assembled, you couldn't really unassemble them again. So we didn't assemble them, and we think a couple of pieces were missing, but they're kind of customizable, so it didn't really matter in that sense. So we were kind of running a bit of a gamble trying to sell those because we weren't really sure, what they would look like or whatever. But somebody at the car boot sale ended up buying them for £10. He was fully aware of the situation with them and that we hadn't actually assembled them yet, but he thought for a tenner, you might as well give them a go. So we were happy with that one. We then had a wooden baby walker. Now I actually really liked this when I saw it. It turned out what we think had happened is that somebody already had one of these baby walkers and maybe the part had broken, etc. So they ordered another one, switched the parts out and then sent one back. Because when we tried to assemble the baby walker, there was a part that just wasn't fitting correctly, but we did manage to adapt it so that it worked fine. However, we haven't been able to sell this one, which I was actually really disappointed at. Well, kind of not, but I was disappointed at this outcome because when we assembled it, it looked really, really nice, and I thought, this is great. Like, somebody will really like this, and somebody will maybe want to spend a bit more money on it because it's like a bit of a better quality one. However, when I did list it on Facebook Marketplace, the listing got removed because the item had been recalled. So I'm assuming that when the item was originally listed and people had bought them, then the item had been recalled because of, I don't know, dangerous parts or whatever. So in some ways I'm glad that we didn't sell it just in case like that was a legitimate recall. But it was one of the items that I was kind of hoping would boost up our profits. But safety comes first. So we still have that. Yeah, it's still sitting at my parents' house, unfortunately. That one did retail at £68.99. Next, we have the baby bed rail. Now, this one retailed at £42.99, and I was actually pretty surprised because this was one of our first sales. I popped this on Facebook Marketplace and somebody bought it almost instantly. It was a lady who actually lives quite near me, so I could just deliver it to her, and I sold it on Facebook Marketplace for £20. Next, we had 4 Christmas trees, which retailed roughly at around £20 per piece. We sold these in various places, so we actually sold 2 of them on Facebook Marketplace. One we sold for £10 and one we sold for £5. The £5 one I think was like a 3-foot tree, and the £10 one was a 5-foot tree. We sold another one for £5 to my nana, who I was going to give it to her for free, but she insisted on giving me some money. So we sold that to her for a £5, and that was a 5-foot tray. And then we also sold another one for £5 at the car boot sale. One thing I would say about car boot sales is that prepare to not make much money. Essentially, I think a lot of the time when you go to car boot sales, people want things for around 50p a pound, whereas I think the items that we were taking were worth a little bit more than what people were willing to pay, so we didn't actually end up selling that much at the car boot sale. Next, we have the outdoor pet canopy, which retails at £27.95. We haven't actually sold that just yet. However, I have a feeling that coming up to the summer, this might sell around that time, because it's more of kind of like something that you would take to the beach, or if you're going on a caravanning holiday, like you take it just to protect your pets from the, like your dog from the sun or something. So we haven't actually managed to sell that yet, but I have a feeling that we will still sell that one. Now, moving on to the giant inflatable bear, this retailed for £39.95. And I was really optimistic for this one. If we didn't sell it, I would have quite happily put it up in my own garden, but unfortunately it was broken. There was a main like electrical piece which blew it up. I think we kind of discovered that in the original video, that it didn't work, and it was going to cost too much to replace that part, so it wouldn't have really been worth it, so we ended up having to skip that, which is disappointing. Next up, we actually have another duvet. This was a double duvet, and this one unfortunately was dirty, so we ended up just donating that to the cat and dog shelter. That retailed at £20.94, and obviously we got nothing for that. Now, next one, the item that I was most excited about in the original video and gutted that I had to sell it, because I have got a cat and I would have loved to have taken my cat Billy out in the pet stroller that we got. It was in perfect condition. It had obviously never been used. There was only like one tiny little mark on one of the little canopy things, which literally would have just rubbed off. It still had the plastic on it. The wheels were absolutely spotless. You could tell it had never been outside. Billy would have never got in that pet carrier and let me take him on a walk, let me tell you that. As much as I would love that life, just wouldn't have happened. So we ended up selling that. It was a double carrier as well, so if you've got like a couple of dogs, I know that a few people had messaged me saying that they've got like older dogs, like chihuahuas and things, that they still want to take out, but they're just too old to like walk and things. So there was a lot of interest around it. Originally this was £82.95, and we managed to sell it on Facebook Marketplace for £60. I was really, really happy with that outcome, just because obviously it's nearly brand new and we sold it for not that much cheaper than the original price. It was only £20 away from the original price, so yeah, happy with that one. Next, we had 2 raised toilet seats. These are for people who struggle to sit on a regular toilet seat because it's a little bit too low, so it just kind of like raises the toilet seat. These were originally £23.42, and we sold one of them at a car boot sale for £5. And the other one unfortunately was broken, so we just had to pop that in the skip as well. Next we have a coloured drawer set. We did manage to assemble this. I don't believe there was anything wrong with this one actually. We managed to assemble it. It was originally £47.59 and we managed to sell it for £25 on eBay, which again, really happy with that outcome. I think somebody came and picked them up, so yeah, really happy with that one. Next we had the pet cooling mat. Now this one unfortunately we haven't been able to sell. We've actually put this in the bin because although it looked like it was pretty much a brand new piece, but the packaging was absolutely beat up. It looked like it had been through some things, but the actual thing looked fine on the outside, but when we opened it up, unfortunately there were bits of mold in it. It obviously, I don't know whether it got wet or I don't know what had happened, but it was moldy and just not very nice, so we ended up binning that. Next we have an ice maker. I was very surprised by this one coming in on the pallet. I was quite excited by this one because I think the ice makers are, I don't know what I would use it for in this country unless I would have like a summer party or I don't know. But an ice maker retailed at £79.95. However, it did have a broken plug. It seemed as though somebody had bought it, didn't want it, and had almost sawed the prongs of the plug off to give a reason to return it by saying that the plug was broken or something. It seemed as though it was probably fine, but they didn't want it and just wanted a reason to return it, so they sawed the plug off, which is a real shame. However, somebody did actually buy this one off eBay for £15. I guess if you know how to change a plug, then absolutely fine. But yeah, somebody bought this for £15. We then had a children's teepee, which I was quite excited about. It was very aesthetic looking. It looked like it goes in one of those beige houses. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, as I sit in a beige room. It actually looked pretty cute. It had like a little net curtain around it and it had some poles, except there was one of the poles missing, unfortunately. So we couldn't sell that because we couldn't actually find any poles to replace that were matching, and it probably would have cost us more to replace the poles than what we could have sold it for, although it retailed for £32.95. My dad ended up keeping the remaining poles in his garage for, I don't know, whatever projects he wants to use them for, and then the rest of it went in the bin, so we didn't sell that one. We had a tripod, which was an Amazon Basics tripod, retailed at £19.95, and we've actually kept that, and my fiance uses that whilst he films his YouTube videos, so that was beneficial to us. So we ended up keeping that one, didn't even bother trying to sell that. Next we had the car shades. So we did discover in the first video that there was a piece missing. Originally retailed for £14.44 and didn't sell them essentially. So yeah, nothing off that one. Again, next with the room divider, I really struggled to work out what this was initially, but it turned out to be a room divider, which retailed at £39.95. There was a lot of missing parts to that and it wouldn't stand up. Which was a little bit annoying, so we didn't sell that one. We then found a children's slide, which again, very optimistic about this. We managed to assemble it. However, two of the steps and one of the baskets that were kind of at the side of the slide were broken. So again, it didn't seem safe to be selling this to anyone because it was almost like if somebody were to stand on the step, they would just fall and probably hurt themselves, so we ended up having to throw that in the skip as well. We then had a bathroom cabinet which we sold for £10 at the car boot sale. This was actually something that we sold as we were packing up, and we were feeling very deflated at this car boot sale, but we did manage to get £10 for the bathroom cabinet. It did retail for £39.99, but a tenner is not bad. The huge dog crate that we found, which was I think at the very bottom of the pallet, was kind of like the base of the pallet. Originally retailed for £99.99. However, we did find that it had some pieces missing. There was a little chip out one of the sides, so it did have a little hole in it. I'm guessing for this size of dog that would go in this crate, that wouldn't really matter too much because the hole was only like this big. But we did manage to sell that actually at the car boot sale for £12. Obviously the person had a look at it and was absolutely fine with the way it was, and yeah, sold it for £12. Now, moving on to the basketball arcade game. I thought that this was just a basketball hoop when we initially opened it, but when you laid all the pieces out, it was basically a full like arcade basketball game, which had electronics to it. It had like an electronic scoreboard, nets down the side, like the full whack. And that originally retailed at £99.95, and we actually managed to sell this in separate parts. So we managed to sell it between Facebook Marketplace, a car boot sale, and eBay. It all ended up going separately. So the electronic counter sold for £26.61, so that's the like electronic board at the back. We managed to sell the material court part, like the surrounding parts, for £11.61, and then the nets and balls we managed to sell for £15 across, like, I think I sold like 2 of the balls and a net at the car boot sale, and then I sold another ball and a net on Facebook Marketplace. But in total we made £53.22 off of that arcade game, which I think, considering that it was £99.95 and there were parts missing, you know, selling it separately worked out pretty well for us. And then finally, the flip-flop stand. I don't even know where to start with this one. I don't actually think this was an Amazon return. I really don't. I think, I don't know where it came from or how it came about, because I don't think that Amazon sells kind of personalized shop stands. Well, we did obviously manage to assemble this, however it wasn't very sturdy at all. We still have it, basically. We haven't managed to sell it. We don't know what to do with it. There was a couple of comments saying that I could use it for something at the wedding, which initially I thought maybe if I were to give out flip-flops or something at the end of the night for those who want to dance or whatever, but the stand really is not very stable at all, and I really don't want that falling on someone at the wedding, so we still have that. Don't know what to do with it. We'll probably end up scrapping it. So that was all of the items that we got on the pallet. From receiving this pallet, I had high hopes. The sheer manpower and energy that went into having the items, shipping them to my parents, trying to list things, trying to assemble things, getting to the final hurdle of assembling something only to find that there's a missing part and it just won't work. We spent quite a few hours trying to assemble things, list things for sale, posting things, etc. And of course we spent several hours at a car boot sale trying to shift things that we didn't manage to sell very much at. eBay, again, things just kind of go stagnant on there sometimes. Facebook Marketplace was a little bit more successful. I would say most of the things we've sold through Facebook Marketplace or eBay, but everything else unfortunately has not sold yet. What I would say though, like I kind of touched on earlier, is that for car boot sales, I think possibly we had a higher price in mind as to compared to what people I think were willing to pay at the car boot sale. So I think maybe the car boot sale wasn't the best place to start selling things at. However, to summarize, if you have been totaling along the way, then you will already know that we have managed to make £295 off of the items that we got off this £250 pallet, which brings our grand total profit to £45. Am I happy with that? No, not necessarily. However, I do have some takeaways from this. First of all, it is a lot of time and energy for not that much reward. But I'm not ruling out never doing one again, only because I have a feeling that the seller that I got this pallet from, which I did get it from eBay itself, I've had a little look more into the seller. Although the seller does have great positive feedback, he does sell individual items and then occasionally he'll pop a pallet on. And I have a feeling that the pallet is just items that he has been unable to sell or didn't want. So I would say that a lot of the items that did come were broken or didn't assemble properly or had missing parts. I would say the original risk was definitely there. It was risky. I'm just happy that we at least broke even. It was a great experiment. Like I say, I wouldn't rule it out completely as to doing one again. However, going forward, if I was to do another one of these, I would do a little bit more research into where I'm getting the pallet from. I would also have a look at some different sources, because I know that there are some auction sites that do sell returns pallets from the likes of Every, ASOS, where else, Very, John Lewis. You know, there's loads of different places that sell returns pallets, and I think if I were to go through like an official returns pallet auction site, that we might be a little bit more successful than just going from someone on eBay who probably just wanted to get rid of the stuff that he couldn't sell. I think another part as well is that I did obviously make a bit of money from that video because of the amount of views that it got. So I would probably say that if I hadn't made the YouTube video about it and I was just doing this as an experiment to see if I can make some extra cash as a side hustle, I would probably have said that it wasn't worth it. but because I did do the video, then it was. So taking all that into account, what do you guys think? Do you think I should do another one, but maybe do a little bit of research as to where it's coming from? Maybe spend a little bit more money on it? Like, is the more risk worth the more reward? Is it because I bought a lower priced palette as to why the reward wasn't so high? If I spent more on it, would that mean that there was a higher reward? Who knows? I mean, other videos that I've watched where people have done, you know, the likes of John Lewis ones, they seem to have gotten quite a decent amount of things, have actually made quite a canny profit out of it. What do we think? Should I buy a more expensive one? Should I take that risk? Who knows? Although we haven't officially got rid of everything, I thought I would give you a little bit of an update just because we are nearly 4 months down the line. And being totally honest, I thought I would have sold everything by now and made tons of money, but I didn't. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys. Baby, let me love